What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I just want to bring another instance of broken games and broken releases and all. I mean, we've all seen them throughout, especially throughout the last 2 or 3 years. It's on everyone's mind right now is Batman Arkham Knight, which I can say has affected me personally, and it leaves questions and hope and all for the future. We've seen delayed PC ports that have turned out to be fantastic. Looking at Grand Theft Auto 5, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, and we've seen ones that have obviously been a dire mess. For example, Batman Arkham Knight, and it leaves me wondering for the future about what we'll see next. Arguably, what comes to mind right now is the two biggest PC games that will release later this year, Fallout 4 being one of them. Bethesda games have a kind of a notorious streak for being extremely broken and buggy, so we'll see how that goes. My hopes are not very high on that. They never were for a clean launch, let alone with the whole Arkham situation as well. And secondly, is one I actually do have hope for, is we have Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, which is out in September, and it does release 2 weeks after the console version, and I'm hoping that, I realize it's only 2 weeks, but if their port of Ground Zeroes is anything to be believed, the game will be highly optimized with better graphics, better settings, better absolutely everything than the console version. But that's not what this video is about anyway. So what this video is about is, let's see, it's the 26th right now. Yeah, so it's currently Friday, the 26th of June. On Tuesday, the 23rd of June, the Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward, the expansion pack for Final Fantasy XIV, finally officially released. Yes, it's been in early access since last Friday, but it officially released. And with that official release, we have the final release version of the Mac client. Now, I personally do not play on Mac. I don't have Macs. I don't use Apple stuff. That's not what it. I'm not gonna put my comments or thoughts on any of that in here, because again, it's not what this video is about. But what finally happened is Mac users have been asking for a Final Fantasy XIV client for about 2 years now. Since, I think it was since since one of the betas is the earliest recollection of it, if not release / shortly after release, which would have been August of 2013 onwards. Now, with the release of Heavensward on Tuesday just gone, they finally, like I said, released as a bundle the game and the expansion together. Now, what pissed some people off as a start was that if you had, no matter what you had, you could have a PS3 license, a PS4 license, or a PC license, specifically a PC license. You would have to re-buy the Mac version. Now, that's pretty shady, is all I can say. But the Mac bundle download, which is only available as a download, by the way, is on the Square Enix store right now for €45 as a digital download bundle of the game and the expansion. But there'd always been very, very little info on this. So even when Square Enix announced that there would be a Mac version, the details and all were always very scarce and sketchy. Even coming up until release, they had still said practically nothing. There was a character creation tool and benchmark released for the PC version, which was testing out the new features and all for the expansion. That never hit Mac. Now, the thing that really, really, really pissed people off is they didn't release the system requirements until a few days later. I think it was like a day or two after official release that they released the official specs. Because I'm gonna alt tab over right now. I'm looking at the PC download minimum system requirements. Yes, I did say PC. I'll switch over now in a second. I'm looking at the PC minimum system requirements here. what we have is Windows Vista 32 or 64-bit, Windows 7 32 or 64-bit, Windows 8 32 or 64-bit, Intel Core 2 Duo 3 GHz, memory 2 GB or 4 GB recommended for 64-bit operating systems, available space on hard drive 20 GB, graphics card NVIDIA GeForce 8800 or higher, ATI Radeon HD 4770 or higher. So, oh yeah, well, DirectX 9.0C or higher. Now these are the PC requirements. Obviously, these are fairly old because it does have to run on the PC and it runs on fairly low-end systems as well. So, again, I'm not going to comment on my views on Macs or anything, but Macs generally do have fairly powerful hardware in them. I mean, one of my friends is a big Apple fan, and he's always keeping me up to date on the new ones that come out and stuff. And I'm fairly well aware that the spec in them is pretty high. Now, I'm going to swap over, and now I'm looking at the Mac download page. I'm going to scroll down. I'm looking at the system requirements now. The only thing that it says, there's literally one bullet point, and it says Mac OS X. That's it. It just says Mac OS X. Now, they were the ones that came out that had been like official since launch. Now, since then, they have actually released the proper specs. Now, here are the official Square Enix specs that came out either earlier today or the day before, I don't remember which, but the minimum spec according to Square Enix is operating system OS X 10. Wait a minute, I'm not familiar how to read this. OS X 10.10.2. To you Mac users out there, this will all make a lot more sense to you. CPU, Intel Core i5 2.7 GHz. Does not give a specific model. It just says i5 2.7 GHz. Memory 4 GB RAM. Graphics, NVIDIA GeForce GT 650M and up, AMD Radeon HD 4870 and up, or Intel Iris Pro and up. What I think is very strange there is the comparison of the HD 4870 and the 650M. A 650M is considerably more powerful than a 4870. But anyway, I digress. Space 30 GB. Now they're the minimum specs. So, okay. They're considerably higher than the PC specs, than the PC minimum specs. Now we go on to the recommended specs here as well. These are recommended Mac specs. I'm not going to touch on the recommended PC ones. OS X 10.10.2. Again, Intel Core i7 2.5 GHz as compared to the i5 2.7 GHz. I may have actually said i7 the first time. The minimum spec is an i5 2.7 GHz. Whereas the recommended is an i7 2.5 GHz. Memory 8 GB RAM. Graphics NVIDIA GeForce GTX 775M. AMD Radeon R9 M290. Now, so we have a considerable amount of people on the Final Fantasy forum. There's currently a thread that's 22 pages long, and it's full of Mac users. Now, a lot of them have been, like I said, they've been crying out for this. Now, I say crying out, I don't say they've been crying. They've been crying out and asking, so don't go crazy on me for that one. They've been looking for a Mac client, a native Mac client, if you will, and they were given a promise of this. So a lot of them either would play on console, or a lot of them would play on Boot Camp. Windows Boot Camp, so they'd have their PC license. And a lot of them considered it bad enough that they'd have to re-buy a code just to run on Mac. And so this was a godsend to most people anyway. So eventually, it came out, they downloaded it. People who not only have the minimum, the recommended, and a lot higher than the recommended spec, are getting single-digit to teen frames per second. And this is usually on the lowest setting. Final Fantasy XIV has, if you don't use custom settings, it has 5 preset graphical settings. It's got laptop standard, or laptop low, I don't remember what it's called anymore. Laptop high, desktop, again, it's either standard or low, desktop high, and maximum. Okay, so a lot of, obviously, because laptop hardware is less powerful than the desktop equivalent, that's why they have the laptop variations and the desktop variations. And yes, Macs do use mostly laptop hardware. But even on the lowest setting, with everything turned down to a very small amount, even on people with that have like 5K screens or Retina display screens or whatever, and if they, some of them have to turn it down to say 720p or 1080p, and they can still only get single digit to teen frames per second. Now, yes, a couple of people have mentioned that, staring at the ground, they can get 25 frames a second. Staring at the wall, they can get 25 frames a second. The cutscenes at the start of the game all run very smoothly, 60 frames per second, a lot of people are reporting. Same in the character creator. But as soon as they get into the game, it becomes a mess. It's a broken mess. Now, a lot of the people in this thread, they've done their research. They've quoted people on other forums like, say, Reddit and all that, who have considerably more experience with this, and they've looked into it. And apparently, the actual port for this was I won't say developed, but it was worked on by a company called Trans Gaming. And Trans Gaming are apparently a company that essentially port games to Mac. But what they did is, it's been specifically listed in this thread as well, actually, that they worked on the League of Legends Mac client, and they've also worked on the Guild Wars 2 Mac client. Now, the big issue that's coming in on this one is it's actually just the PC version in a wine wrapper thrown onto OS X. And apparently it runs, like I've mentioned already, it runs like absolute shit. So that's, for a big company like Square Enix, with how much money they lost on Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, and then how much time, money, and investment they spent on remaking Final Fantasy XIV into 2.0, and then continuing on, this is a lot of people consider this an extreme blemish on their support. A lot of people in this thread, because they do play MMOs, a lot of them have played World of Warcraft, and they note that Blizzard have basically perfect Mac clients. Now, apparently the Blizzard Mac clients are actually fully native. They're not wrappers or anything like that. So it's not just a PC Windows version thrown into a quick little shitty wrapper and put onto OS X just so it can launch in OS X. So this isn't just for World of Warcraft. A friend of mine who actually he played, like the guy I mentioned earlier, he has an Alienware laptop, so it is a Windows based laptop, but he is a big Apple fan. He just can't afford a Mac, but his girlfriend has like 2 Macs because she is like a desktop for work, and she's a MacBook Pro of some sort. But he plays some of the Blizzard games because he has a bunch of Blizzard games, so he plays some of them on there, and he says it's considerably better, or it's considerably comparable, I should say. But he does mention that there are some other things, like the Steam client is apparently a piece of shit on Mac, but we're not talking about that. But it's just the fact that such a big company like Square Enix can fuck this up so much. The Mac users have been very vocal, which I applaud them for. They've been very vocal about being pissed off, and considerable amount of them had offered refunds, and they basically, what I find very interesting about it is they basically get refunds just thrown at them. And if you're familiar with either Square Enix, or if you're familiar with Square Enix and one of their MMO titles, Final Fantasy XI or Final Fantasy XIV in particular, okay, well, Square Enix are usually fairly tight-fisted with refunds and money and accounts and all, just in general. But if you're familiar, like I said, with either Square Enix and their MMOs and how they clutch with the money on those, it is almost entirely unheard of. I mean, I've been dealing with Square Enix regarding their MMOs since 2008. And in that time, I can think of about maybe 3, 4, maybe maximum 5 instances of ever getting anything refunded in any way, shape or form. And now these people on the Mac forum, or on these Mac users, they don't even have to fight for them. They're getting them completely thrown at them. They're just like, oh, I want a refund. Boom, they get a refund. That's it. Usually, like I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but Square Enix are usually really, really tight-fisted with this shit. So it really shows that they know there's a problem. They haven't spoken out and officially acknowledged it, but I mean the actions speak louder than words, and this says it all, really. So I mean, people, it's ridiculous, and like I said, I do applaud them for being very vocal. I do applaud them for, standing up and getting refunds. There's a lot of people who just would deal with it and hope a patch comes along, which is bullshit basically. But it goes to, I mean, they've literally had, since release of 2.0, because 2.0 didn't have a Mac client at first. They've literally had almost 2 years. It released in August of 2013, and Heavensward released less than a week ago in the end of June. So they've had almost 2 years, and apparently what they did is they just gave it over to Trans Gaming and just went from there and hoped for the best. Again, it's a whole Arkham Knight situation, because with such severe and crippling problems like this, how does it get out of quality assurance or anything like that? To be honest, I don't think in the case of Arkham Knight and Final Fantasy Mac version, I don't think there was any quality assurance. I think they just did it and threw it out, and that was it. No tests whatsoever. In the case of Trans Gaming and the Mac client, I think because previously that they had done something very similar with the Guild Wars 2 and League of Legends client. No, I never noticed anyone mention on the quality of the League of Legends one, but I have in this thread itself specifically, I have seen varying reports on the Guild Wars 2 client. Some people said it ran like absolute shit, despite smashing the system requirements and even having even playing it flawlessly on Boot Camp on the same computer. And some people had said, it ran like shit. Some people had said it took a performance hit, but it was passable. And some people said that it still ran flawlessly. So it's all over the place with the report on that. But what I will say is that I think Trans Gaming just said, oh, well, we've done this before. Do this, throw it over, bang, it's out. And just did absolutely nothing. But again, like I said a minute ago, the fact that Square Enix are not even putting up a fight at all, I think they know something is wrong. And I don't know, hopefully for the people who are affected by this, it does get fixed, because I mean, it's bullshit that people can't play on their preferred platform. It may not be my preferred platform, but a lot of these people are saying that they literally only have Boot Camp just to run Final Fantasy XIV, and they don't want to pay extra money for. I think they mentioned there was a virtual Windows virtual machine software called Parallels, and they didn't want to pay for that when they already had a Boot Camp license. And a lot of people they don't want to go through the hassle, and they don't want to have to keep the Windows partition, lose the space to Windows. And apparently it's a bit of a hassle to boot up into Boot Camp. I just assumed it was like a bootloader, and every time you turn your computer on, you pick what to boot. But that's just me. I don't know. So it's madness. Why do companies keep thinking they can get away with this shit? Do some fucking testing, for fuck's sake. I mean, we're the reason. I say we as in gamers. I don't use the Mac client and all, but this relates to the PC crowd, the PlayStation crowd, and the Mac crowd. We're the people that keep you in business. Don't piss us off. We need, you need to appease us and give, for folks sake. I mean, how in 2015? Okay, this is a rhetorical question, because it will seem very bad given the history of games lately. But how unexpected is, or how unreasonable is it to expect a working game client or working game software? It's staggering how some of these companies can survive so long with all shady business practices. And I mean, I'm just going to kind of cut it off there, because I'll be leading into one of my other. I'll just be leading into a rant that I had in like a Batman video or a Halo video at some point, because all the broken shit that was in those. But I really hope this gets fixed. If not, like I had mentioned, a lot of these people had got refunds, so they are speaking with their wallets and they're very vocal about it. There's like I mentioned, there's a 22-page thread that's rarely off the first page on the general discussion forum, so it's a fairly widespread issue, and if the client doesn't get fixed, I'd have literally no words to describe how disappointed I'd be. And even though it doesn't affect myself, it's just something that a company that I hold to a relatively high standard, maybe not as high as I used to, but a company that I just hold to a relatively high standard, that will just brush it off and say, oh well, we tried, no one wanted it. And they didn't say, they didn't admit no one wanted it, because they were just shit and incompetent and just outsourced it to someone, just hoped for the best, which is just bollocks, really. I mean, you shouldn't treat your fans like that. You shouldn't treat the people that make you where you are today like that. So again, I'm ranting at this point because it's a very frustrating subject to me. Heavensward is a great game, and it sucks that people can't enjoy it on their own preferred platform because of laziness, cheapness, and what I will call transgenders and whoa, sorry about that. That was just a complete slip. That wasn't trying to say anything. Trans gaming's incompetence, if you will. Okay, so because this video has gone on way too long and way too much, let me know in the comment section below specifically. Okay, I mean, I want to hear from everyone about just broken games and all this bullshit, but I specifically want to hear your experience if you are a Mac user. Because, I mean, what happened to you? What kind of performance and all are you getting it with? So, I mean, that's, have you request? So it's 5:30 in the morning here. I'm getting tired and tongue-tied. Probably explains the last slip up there a second ago. Yeah, I want to know if you got a refund, if you requested a refund, if you got it, if you Square Enix just threw it at you or anything like that. I want to know all that kind of stuff. Let me know all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter. Details in the description below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to this exceptionally long rant, as usual. Speak with your wallets, everyone, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel while we do not stand for this bullshit. Now, back to Heavensward.